Ahoi aku hoa maminga katoa. Welcome along to episode 4 of the Joy of Yarn Yarncast. Thanks for joining me today. In this episode, we're going to take a look at what's been on my needles, or still on my needles, what's come off my needles. I've been out and about, so I was channeling my inner Viking at a Viking festival, got the t-shirt to prove it. I also went to an amazing weaving exhibition called Ngahere, and I'll announce the winner of the giveaway from the last episode. Hi, and welcome back to another episode to all the regular viewers, and for anyone who's tuning in for the first time, an extra special kia ora to you and welcome along. My name's James, I'm a knitter, a long-time knitter, and I'm based in the small rural town of Karatin, whose Māori name is Taratahi, which is about an hour and a quarter's drive, hour and a half's drive to the northeast of Wellington, our capital city. Well, we've just moved from summer into autumn here. We had a rubbish summer. And autumn started off well, but it got pretty cold last night. I even lit the fire. And Miss Jaffa the cat was very happy I lit the fire. She spent the whole evening right in front of it. But yeah, seasons change. That's what happens. And I like living in an area where you do see the seasons change through the course of the year. Despite the season change, there's still quite a bit of colour in my garden too. So just this morning I picked a few dahlias from the garden just to bring into the house for some extra colour in the house. I had a great show with all my dahlias this year actually. I've only been in this house 18 months, so I'm still establishing the gardens the way I want them to be. So I'm doing quite a bit of change in the garden. So it's really quite nice to see the things that I've planted now coming to life and putting on a show for me. I suppose being a knitter, I like playing with colour, and to the same extent too with my garden, I just like having lots of colour in the garden. So I'm very much a person that likes to have a floral garden. I like lots of colour outside during the summer months. And I like bringing colour inside sometimes too, because as you can see from the walls behind me, my house is a bit bland at the moment. A project is to get some more painting done, but I haven't managed to find the time to do it yet. But watch this space. In the coming months, you'll see the wall behind me turn to a different colour. Just when I get 5 minutes. Right, this is a yarn cast, so let's get on with the yarn and the knitting. Right, on the needles, I've actually only got three projects on the needles at the moment. I'll just show you two today. Now, in my nice merman bag. Last episode, I showed you the feral cuffs I was working on. That was part of when I was in a study group in Dunedin when I was living down there, how we all bought the same type of yarn but in different colours, and we're going to knit the project to see how different they would be with everybody's different colour preferences and how they chose them. So it was based on using a nice feral graph, had a bit of fun with that, and it's called the Little Cotton Rabbits Feral Cuffs. It's a charted pattern. So I actually got started and I've done one cuff. So ta-da, I completed one. So it's interesting. It's your standard feral knitting. So it's stranded knitting. So on the inside, you're carrying the yarns across. And that gives you a nice little image of that too. So this is the first time I've done some serious feral knitting. I've done colour work before, but I wouldn't have called it feral. And with this pattern, it gives you lots of options as to how you're going to knit it. So you can see here, I've got a bit of a gap there. I started knitting it flat in the first instance. And when I was knitting it flat, I discovered a few things about feral knitting. Most of my colourwork knitting, when I would knit flat, I would carry the yarn back across on the second row or the wrong side of the knitting. And it meant that I still had all my yarns on one side of the knitting. But with this pattern, sometimes you only had one row with the colour, and it wasn't until several rows later that you then use that colour again. So I got caught out right from the start actually of yarns being on the wrong side when I wanted to do it. And I kind of thought, well, if I cut the yarn, I'm going to have 1,000,001 ends to have to sew in when I'm finished. So then I sat down and thought about it. Well, it can't be that difficult, or it shouldn't be that difficult. So what I then did was I just put it onto a circular needle and I knitted in the round. And the great thing about that, I discovered, was that you're just carrying the yarns up your start point of the round. So I put a stitch marker in to designate the start and end of the round, and I was just carrying the yarn up on the inside. So at the start here, you can see lots of ends, and I haven't sewn it together yet just to show you. But then, if you can see here, I've then been carrying them up the edge, so there's no more ends to sew in except for at the very, very end of the project. So I was happy with how it turned out. Size-wise, it's a tight scrunch to actually get on for me, but it does still go. And then when I got it finished, I just thought, this is an exercise in colour. So am I going to do the second one to match, or should I do something different? And so I thought, I should really try doing something different. And I haven't finished it yet, but I have cast on. And I've cast on using the same 5 colours, but already it's looking quite different. So, oops, if I get those out of the way, tuck them in there. You can see the colours of the cast on there and the start, and then I've got these ones here, very, very different. So I thought I'll have a good play around and just use the same colours and just place them differently in the pattern or designate different parts of what it would be. So far I'm thinking, gosh, this will look quite different. And it's interesting because as I started going through it, I really didn't like this through about 80% of my knitting of it. I just thought, oh, I don't like those colours, don't like how they work together. And then I put it down and walked away and walked back to it a day or so later and thought, actually, I do kind of like it now. And when it was finished, wow, I like it even more. So I'll see how I go. I mean, they'll obviously be an odd pair, and it's just an exercise for me, so I don't know if I'll be wearing them at all, but it's just a bit of fun. And it was just 5 colours that I'm working on. And I was a bit of a muppet in the last episode because I was saying how I chose my colours because I liked the names of them. And then I read out just a generic name. Because I'd handwritten on the labels what colour I would use on the graph, but I translated them just to a basic name, and I totally didn't read on the label what the actual names were. So I've still got the labels in here, and like I said, that's yellow. It's not yellow, it's called cornfield. Isn't that a much better name for a colour like that? So it's called cornfield. And where am I with these? The bright green is called Celtic. So I like that name because it played into my heritage because I've got Irish and Scottish in me. The other green is called Tartan, and being Scottish, I thought the name Tartan was pretty fantastic. And Feral being sort of like Scottish origins as well. And, oh, that's what it was. Now the mauve was called cyclamen. Here's me just calling it plain mauve. Now it's funny that it's called cyclamen because my mother used to love having cyclamens in her garden, and I never saw any of her cyclamens that particular colour. There were lots of pinks and fuchsia type colours, but never a purple quite like that. And the red was called Poppy, and I like that because it is in the red colour palette. And I've always been a fan of Kate Fassett's Persian Poppies knitwear, so that was kind of cool. So I'm a shocking person. I normally choose colours sometimes because of their name, and that was sort of like the instance here. I knew what kind of colour range I wanted to have, but the names are what stimulated me to make the choice. And when I paint or choose paint colours in my house, quite often the name has to be significant as well. And a friend of mine who's an architectural designer thinks I'm an idiot because sometimes what I've done recently with colours of paint is there's got to be a food connotation with it because I love food so much. So I have a wall colour I like, which is a beige colour. It's called biscotti. And yeah, and there's another rich yellow colour called Manuka honey. So yeah, it's just one of those weird things. It's just like when I buy bottles of wine, I buy it for how pretty the label is half the time, or if it's won an award, as opposed to my knowledge of wine isn't all that great. But yeah, so that's on the needles, and I hope to have that finished in time for the next episode. So I'm really enjoying that. I haven't really done any serious ferrule before, so that was a nice little beginner project just to see how I liked it and how I was going to work on carrying the yarns. And I think instead of launching forth into a big sweater or vest like I could have done, just doing a small project lets you know if you're going to like something or not. Now, my other project on the needles, which I'm really in love with, in my Ultra Butch project bag. It's a Kath Kidson one that my friend Sarah gave me as a present. It's always a conversation starter when I turn up to a knitting group with this in my hand. Now, this isn't an official pattern. It's something I'm just going along with it as I go. I'm trying to stash bust as much as possible this year because I was quite irresponsible last year and bought an awful lot of yarn on my trip away. So I was stash diving, and I had this ball of the Kauni Effektgarn. Now, it's a yarn from Denmark, and I bought it ages ago because I bought 2 balls of this for another project, which is also a scarf. And it's got a beautiful long run of colour where it fades from one into the other. And if you can just see inside of the centre, there's different colours. So it goes to a copper next, then it's going into an orange, and yeah. So I had an idea that I wanted to use up this ball of yarn because it was just sitting in the stash. I thought, I love it. I want to use it up. Don't want it to sit there doing nothing for ages. Then I thought, what can I put with it? And last year, on the last episode, I showed you that I bought myself for Christmas the Selbu pattern book. And I've been really enjoying that. So much so that you'll see in acquisitions that I bought the companion book, which is about Selbu mittens. When I was overseas last year, I bought some Tukuwool, which is a yarn that's from Finland. And I bought 2 skeins. One was in a natural colour and one was a burgundy. And I thought perhaps I could play with that for the scarf. But I put them together and it wasn't going to work with this because I was sure that the burgundy was just going to not show up in contrast to this colouring in here. So I thought, oh, well, the natural colour will work quite well. But I thought I don't have enough. I've only got one 50-gram ball of that. So I knew that Newton House, which is an online store based in Wellington, also stocked Tukuwool. So I went online and sure enough, they had the same colour. I knew it was going to be a different batch. So I got a couple of skeins of that. And it's this beautiful natural colour. On their colour chart, it's called brown. I don't know why it's called brown because I would not call this brown. But anyway, that's what it is. And I'm going overseas again later this year and I wanted to take a scarf with me, something new. And so I had this idea that I liked all the Nordic star patterns in the Selbu pattern book. So I've set aside 4 of the different star designs. And fortunately, I was clever and I chose them because they were all the same size in terms of they were 13 stitches wide and I think about 15 stitches high. And I thought I'm going to put them into a scarf. And I thought I'd make it a double knitting scarf, so it's reversible. And I have started. So I'm calling it my Nordic Star Scarf. And I might just roll this up for a start to show you. Because here I've merged into the brown, and there you can see a beautiful contrast. You can see the stars. And there's just a nice pattern I'm doing on either side. And if I just start unrolling it, you can see how the colour has progressed so far. So I started off down here with this caramel, rich caramel colour, and the natural colour is getting just a little bit lost with it, which I'm a little bit disappointed with. But as the Kauni Effektgarn has moved into the brown colours, it's becoming a lot more clear. And because it's double knitting, the image is reversed on the other side. So here we've got the Kauni Effekt as the background colour and the Nordic stars in the natural. When you turn it around, we have the natural colour in the background and we have the Kauni Colour Effektgarn as the stars in the edge border. So I think when you hold it from a distance, you can see the pattern quite nicely actually. So I'm really pleased with how this is knitting up at the moment. Still not convinced about the start down there, but it's coming on really strong here. And the colours are only getting darker with the brown from this point on until we transfer into this rich rusty copper tone. and then back into an orange again. So I'll see how we go. This was 100 grams. Now the Kauni Effekt yarn is really interesting because it comes in different weights. Some are only 100 grams, some 150, some 180. I'm not quite sure the reason why, but I think this was a 150 gram one and I used part of it in another project. So I knew I had 100 and I got 2 of these which were 50 gram balls. So I've got 200 grams of yarn and I thought I would just, knit up as far as I can go. And the idea was to do sets of 3, and each set is a different Nordic star. So as I said before, I've chosen 4 different shapes of the Nordic star, and I've got version 1 there, version 2 there, I'll go into 3, I'll go into 4, and then I'll start carrying on with them. If I reach across, oops, I just knocked something off the couch. So this is like the charts I'm working from. So there are 4 different Nordic stars in there, and each of those 4 will appear in this scarf. So it's not an official pattern, it's just something I've kind of made up. It's because it's double knitting, there's 70 stitches on here. And with double knitting, really it's like knitting a rib, so it slows me down. So it's a slow knit, but it's one that I'm really enjoying. And my trip away isn't till the end of August. So I've got plenty of time to get it done, but there's also lots of other things I want to get knitted before I go away too. So we'll just see how we all go with that. But that's a current knit which I'm really, really enjoying. And I hope to see that progress as quick as I can. As I say, I'm not very fast with double knitting. I enjoy double knitting. Oh, what I should actually say is, like, when you roll it up, you can see how the natural colour is dominant there, because the first stitch on each row, because I'm knitting it flat, I slip the stitch. So that makes the background colour for that row the dominant, and it shows as a spiral there. So when I turn it over, you now see the caramel spiralling around and a little bit of chocolate in the centre. So on the row where the Kauni Effekt coloured yarn is the first stitch of the row, that's where I'm slipping that one. And so that end has a beautiful caramel and brown, and that's the natural. It's one of those funny quirks. Now, even though it's not on my needles at the moment, I'll just show you the scarf that I knitted a few years ago. I think about 5 years ago I probably knitted it. It's the Sock Magician W12 8QT scarf. And again, so you can see how the slip stitch at the start just causes this wonderful effect. And on this one here, the contrast colour wasn't a natural colour, it was a green, because it's my favourite colour. On this project, I used Kauni yarn for both the contrast and the main colour. So, so the texture was exactly the same. And I had a slight glitch with this one too, in terms of I hadn't seen all the colours that were inside the multicoloured one. And I chose a dark green because I like dark green, and I thought it would be a great contrast. And for some of it, it is brilliant contrast. It's really beautiful. And you can see how it developed through. It's almost psychedelic, but it's actually an Art Nouveau pattern that was on there. But when we get through to the brown, it's a little bit hard to see the contrast. So that section there was just a little bit, well, it's actually not too bad from a distance, but close up. And when I was knitting at night, I was really quite disappointed and frustrated. But on the whole, it is such a fantastic project, this one, that I really, really love. And so this is the same colourway for the multicoloured Kauni Effekt yarn that I'm doing in my Nordic Stars scarf. But again, like I said, there's one section where the contrast wasn't quite as good as I thought it would be. And sadly, that's in my Nordic Stars scarf, that's in the section that's got the caramel at the start. But we'll see how we go, because it transitions through. The chocolate brown will be great contrast in the Nordic Stars scarf, where it was the problem colour in here. So this is a former project that I really loved, and yeah, so this will be a slightly skinnier scarf. This was quite wide, I thought, and this project took me 3 months of knitting about 2 or 3 hours a night at the dining table, because I had to really concentrate. Love it though, but sometimes there's a real investment in time in projects. Yes, I've got some projects finished, and you'd think I jolly well should have some projects finished, since it's been a little bit of time between episodes. Now, you remember last time, well, actually, in every episode, I've been showing you progress on my Arne and Carlos Mountains and Fjords socks. That's a Regia Designline printed yarn, which gives you fit when knitted up. Well, I've finally finished them. So here we go. I haven't really blocked them. I've got them on the bloggers, but I haven't washed them properly. So I finished them, absolutely loved them, and it was quite a great bit of fun doing them. I've worn them a few times already. They're really comfortable. I mean, it's one of those yarns that they're very hard. It's really hard wearing. It's not as soft as other yarns and socks, but they'll last me a long time. They're an everyday go-to pair of socks for me now, so they will wear out in time. Although my socks don't wear out quite so fast because I have so many socks. I've probably got about 60 pairs of hand knit socks now. So because I alternate wear a reasonable amount, mine don't tend to wear out like other people do if you've only got 1 or 2 pairs of socks you've hand knitted. So I was a little bit slow with these because it was sort of like a secondary project I had just in the bag that I pick up every now and then. Oh gosh, the light's changing, isn't it? That's autumn for you. The sun's gone behind a cloud. As I was saying, I was a little bit slow with the knitting of these. So when I finished them, I actually did some photos outside in the garden, and I jokingly put on Instagram that I photographed them there next to the creeping time because time crept a little bit too much when I was actually making these. So I'll just share those photographs with you now. Now, another project I had that was on the needles in the last episode was the colourful socks. Now, I had only got up to the heel shaping on the first sock in that episode. And this is 2 beautiful yarns. It's a sock yarn from Morag from Vintage Purls, which is the bright pink, which is called Marie. That was the colourway. And the white and black stripy one is Urth Yarns, U-R-T-H. And they brought out some animal print yarns a couple of years ago. So there was zebra stripe and there was also a tiger stripe. So I didn't want to do a plain zebra stripe sock like everybody else had done. So I thought I could pair the 2 yarns together. So it looks a bit like a licorice all sort. But I got those done. I got the zebra yarn from the Yarn Queen, who are a Wellington-based online yarn mother and daughter team, who go to all the markets as well. So I think I bought this from them when they were at the Capital Fibre Fair last year, possibly, can't remember. And the other thing I was doing with this was I was playing. I wanted a bit of a play in terms of alternating colours. So I like doing stripes, and these are strange stripes. But here, whoops, I started with the pink and worked through, and here I started with the zebra. I just wanted to see with playing with colour. So when I do projects, sometimes I like to just experiment to see what can be done differently, how different things will work together. And if you do like mixing colours, you can say, okay, I'm going to use these 2 colours in a sock, but this does look different to this, even though it's the same 2 colours. It's a bit strange, a bit weird, but I used to have this obsession with having identical socks. It was just what I like to do. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I'm a bit more chill about things. I quite like playing with things and making fraternal socks. So you can see they're a pair even though they're different. Perhaps because I'm getting old, and if I have them different, I can say that one is for my left foot and one's for my right foot. Something like that. Well, these aren't for me. I wouldn't mind wearing socks this bright and this colourful, but no, they'll be a gift for somebody. I'll put them into the stash when someone's got a birthday coming up. I did them as a woman's size, so there's 60 stitches in the round, and I normally do about 18 rounds of rib. At the top I've done a 2x2 rib on these, and I normally do about 60 rounds, the knit in the round. Normally I do them top down to the heel shaping, and then you do about 60 rounds from there to the toe shaping, and then cast off. So it's a vanilla sock. It's quite straightforward, but vanilla socks don't need to be too plain. You just add some colour to spice them up a bit. So I wanted some plain, simple knitting in the last couple of months because I was in a bit of a funny place, really. It was the second anniversary of my mother's passing, and it was affecting me more than I thought it was. So I couldn't really do anything too complicated, which is why it's great that I've started doing that Nordic Stars scarf now, because I'm in the right frame of mind to be able to do something a bit more complicated again now. So the last couple of months, it's been really simple, straightforward, plain knitting, really, just to get me through, because I still had the urge and need to knit, just that I couldn't really cope with anything too complicated while I was sorting through other sorts of things. But knitting is always a great standby when I need to work things out. If I do something plain, my subconscious kind of like takes over and I start thinking about other sorts of things and work through and solve problems. I don't know if other people are like that at all, but also too when I go walking. If I go running, which isn't very often, oh my gosh, my body's just in survival mode and breathing and just getting one foot in front of the other. But when I walk, and I do about 12,000 steps a day of walking, because that's what I just do for myself, it's interesting. My mind just frees up completely, and the amazing things I think of and plan and come into my mind and everything. It's interesting, yeah. So no, I'm not a runner, never have been, never will be. I'll leave that to other people. So when I said I only wanted plain knitting to do, I still got quite a bit done. Well, I'll go back one little step. I was searching through my yarn cupboard to try and find something to do that was plain. And as I was pulling bags out and seeing what was actually in them, because I had no idea what was in some of these bags, I came across one small bag that had all my odds and sods from sock projects that the ends of yarn left over. And man, I found this bag that had 70 different ends in it. And some had like about 20 or 30 grams, some only had about 2 or 3 grams left in them. And for some reason, it just triggered something in me, and I got really angry and grumpy. And I thought, I can't just leave that bag. And of course it was a spaghetti mess of them all knotted together, because they'd all been rolling around together and had all come undone a bit. So I just felt that I had to deal to that before I did anything else. So I spent an evening untangling the yarn spaghetti. That made me feel better, because it was all neat and orderly. Then I thought, what am I going to do with all this sock yarn? Well, this is what I did. I started doing baby socks. I try and do a few pairs of baby socks each year. I have a few on hand in case someone's having a baby, and it's a quick gift you can just give, and it's a bit of fun. But I also donate some to either a local hospital or a charity for babies each year. And I haven't done too many for a wee while, but I just started doing the baby socks. When I flew back from Europe last year, I knitted a couple of pairs of baby socks on the flights. It was just, again, it's a simple pattern that's embedded in my head. It's just plain knitting with some shaping. I don't have to worry too much about it when I do it, so it's just something I can just do anywhere and not worry. So it was amazing seeing the odds and ends, because it's almost like a little bit of a treasure trove of the history of my knitting too, because this goes back 15 years. Whoops, I should do it the other side. It shows the toes better. This is Opal Lollipop. So that's about 15 years old. So that's been in my stash a while and not seeing the light of day. And then I found this one here, which was a yarn I dyed back when I was an indie dyer. And that was what I dyed up for a men's knitting retreat once, where I gifted them some yarn. So it was quite nice seeing some of that left over and playing around with that again. This was another one I dyed years ago when I was going through my green fetish, absolutely my green fetish. So when I was playing with the yarns, I was having all these flashback memories with some of the yarns. Some I had no idea. I mean, I've got no idea where that one came from, absolutely none. But obviously I made something with it at some point. And there wasn't enough yarn to finish the pair, so I just did some orange on the toes. But it was fun just working through things. That's the second one of that, and just I was just playing around. If I didn't think I had enough to do a whole pair, I might just do stripes with them. So doing baby socks is a lot of fun, because you can use up scraps, and these ones were quite nice with the caramel and the chocolate. So yeah, I mean, I did, 15 pairs of baby socks to build that up. And this was a beautiful one. That was a yarn I bought in America a few years back. I really love doing those ones. I digress. And with my leftover from the Arne and Carlos Mountains and Fjords, there was enough for a baby pair as well. So obviously, with less stitches in the round, the stripes are thicker. But that was a bit of fun. I really enjoyed doing those too. So Yeah, the plan is Capital Fibre Fest. They normally do a collection of knitted items, so I might give some of the baby socks to them. Marsden Hospital, which is my closest hospital to here, they have taken some of my baby socks before and loved them, so I might give some to them again this year. So the plan will be to keep my stash under control of odds and ends and odds and sods, as I'm going to try and do one pair of baby socks a week. It might be my Monday knitting project, just get one pair done, and so I can see progress. Because even though I found that one bag with about 70 odd odds and sods in it, and I felt so good after knitting all of them up, I then found another couple of bags. Didn't have quite as many, but I was just like, oh my goodness. So I've actually condensed down quite a lot of things in my yarn cupboard to try and make sense and to fit things in there better. So yeah, so the project is one pair of baby socks a week is just a nice project to do, so I can feel accomplishment of achieving something. Now, my mushrooms. For those of you that don't know about my mushrooms, I do knit mushrooms and plant them around outside. So last year, at the start of the year, again, I think it was the same thing. It was close to the anniversary of Mum's death. So I knitted quite a few mushrooms just because I needed to knit, but I couldn't handle anything too complicated. Well, part of using up a lot of those odds and ends of sock yarn was I made some smaller size mushrooms as well. And I found some other double knit yarn that I hadn't finished or used up, so I made more mushrooms. So there are quite a few. So I've done about 30 or 40 mushrooms. And so sort of like normal size ones with double knit yarn. I play around with the size a little bit, but they're relatively thick with knitting because you double strand the yarn as you're doing them. And I did some that were just in sock yarn. So I did the same height, but the skinnier. I actually put more stitches into these so they'd be a little bit similar. But yeah, it was a way of playing around using up the yarn as well. And it's got me ahead of the game. So the goal always was to plant one mushroom a week somewhere. And I like to choose either something that's really, someplace that's really beautiful out in nature, or what I'll do is I really like murals and art like that, and infrastructure cabinets around the place and you paint up with murals on. So I try and plant them around those and take a few photographs and post them on Instagram, and it's a lot of fun. So last year I didn't plant all the ones that I've knitted up, and now I've got quite a few sitting around here waiting as well. So the goal is I'm going to try up the regime a bit, and I'm going to try and plant 2 mushrooms a week until I use up all these ones that I've got. I'm up to about mushroom number 95 at this stage. And if you don't know the story about the mushrooms, a friend of mine from the Netherlands, Jan, he came up with this pattern, and it was in the book Yarn Bombing. And it was just a simple pattern for a mushroom, and it's just you knit them, and I get a kebab stick and I just plant them in the ground, and it's just something that will catch people's attention sometimes or not. Sometimes they stay in situ for quite a long period of time. Sometimes they just disappear very, very quickly. So yeah, I just think it's a bit of fun. See if people are watching what they're doing sometimes. Funnily enough, last year I planted one in the little flower bed, which is below the clock tower in Carterton, Taratahi here, where I live. And a friend of mine from Auckland, which is an 8-hour drive away, contacted me and said, "You won't believe this, but I belong to this mushroom spotting group that's around the country, and someone's put a photograph of a knitted mushroom. Is it one of yours?" And it was the one that I planted just a few weeks before. And all these mushroom fanatics were coming up with weird, funny names for this new woolly variety of mushroom that someone had spotted. So people do notice them. It's a bit of fun. I think I'm up, as I said, batch number 95. I think I have a goal of possibly getting up to 250. Once I've done 250, I think I will be probably a little bit bored with mushrooms, and I think I will have done my dash with them by then. I may even think of doing another shape. Who knows? Anyway, so that's everything that's been done, really. But since we've been talking about the mushrooms, what I'll do is I'll just put some photographs in here of the mushrooms I've released into the wild since the last episode. Enjoy. Acquisitions. Well, I've actually been quite good since the last episode. I haven't been too naughty. I think I'm trying to pace myself this year, and the reason being is that I'm going overseas again for another trip, and I'm bound to buy yarn when I'm away. My stash is stable, stash accumulation beyond life expectancy, and I do need to deal to that. So I am trying to stash bust as much as I can this year before I go away. But as with that Nordic Stars scarf, I did actually have to buy some yarn. So it's is it really called stash busting if I had to buy additional yarn to go with the yarn I was using up? But anyway, I mentioned it was Tukuwool. So there we have the label. This is a yarn from Finland, and I came across it actually when I was overseas last year, and I bought it in Sweden. And it's just a lovely, quite an earthy look to it. It's almost like an undyed yarn, but I think it has been coloured slightly. As I say, as I said earlier in the colour chart, this is called, they gave it a name which was Rura, and on the chart it was called brown. It's 4-ply, so it's fingering weight, and matches the Kauni colour effect yarn that I was doing. And I needed to buy 2 to get the 100 grams to go with the 100 gram Kauni effect yarn that I had. So that's what I purchased. I got that from Newton House, who are based in Wellington. And I'll see how that uses up. I do have the one skein of this that I bought in Sweden, so if I need to go a little bit longer with the scarf to get the right length, I can always throw that one in. It's a different colour batch, but it's not too bad. And as it's double knitting, it'll be blending in anyway, so it should be kind of okay. So I bought that, and also I couldn't help myself, but Morag from Vintage Purls, she's got a special anniversary to celebrate this year, 15 years of Vintage Purls. Now, in terms of being an indie dyer, I think 15 years must make her the most established indie yarn dyer in New Zealand, for sure. So that's something quite amazing to celebrate. So 2008. What I thought was so interesting when she posted that is that 2008 was the year I set up my own yarn business back in the day. So I had no idea that she was just the new kid on the block when I started mine. So yeah, it's great. I mean, she's gone on and lasted. I closed mine down after about 6 years. So obviously she's still loving what she's doing. So as part of what Morag was doing, she has designed a hat. So if I go a little bit closer, that's Morag modelling it too, actually. So she's called the hat Quindecenium, which is to do with the 15th anniversary of her business. And the pattern itself is a fair album she's designed, and 15 plays a part in lots of parts of the design. I won't give too much away, other than it's got 150 stitches in the round. And there's other sorts of things in the pattern. So she was having a lot of fun when she designed this as well. And because she indie dyes yarn, she released some yarn kits for it. So I bought a yarn kit. So it takes 5 colours, but also too, as Morag says in the pattern, you can choose any colours you want. You can follow the graph, and you can put more colours in, you can use less colours to make it different, whatever you want. But I bought the kit, and the kit gives you the colours that's used in the pattern. So you can see there's different sizes of the yarns. So you've only got as much as you need for the colour that's in the pattern, because it's a kit to match what's on the pattern. So it's a beautiful, she hasn't given names to the colours, just colour A, B, C or D. But it's a deep blue, which is almost a purple, which is fantastic. And these are sort of like my colour palette all the time, so it's a mid-green and a nice yellowy colour. And I've got the bright blue, another one of those mid pinky purpley colours as well. So I bought that. When I finish doing the Fair Isle cuffs, I will no doubt do this hat, because Fair Isle. I might do that thing every Friday. I'll knit on Fair Isle and call it Fair Isle Friday and post to Instagram. So that's Morag's Quindecenium hat or beanie, and the pattern has got colour charts, goes into detail, so it's all a lot of fun. So you can get that from Morag's website, vintagepurls.co.nz, or you can also get the pattern on Ravelry, because it's been released on Ravelry too. As I said earlier, at Christmas time I bought myself the Selbu knitting book, and I was so in love with that book and salivating over everything that was in it. Was it my Norwegian heritage coming to the fore? Possibly, who knows? But I knew that there was a companion book. Well, I say companion, it's similar. It's all on mittens. So it's Selbu, and it shows all the patterns again. And I'm using this as a source for my Nordic Star scarf. And it just follows the same line as the other book. And it gives you a history of Selbu knitting for a start. Some beautiful pictures of people wearing the items from back in the day, images of the spinning wheels and doing it. But it's just basically pattern after gorgeous pattern after gorgeous pattern, and then more amazing patterns thrown in as well. So it's going to be an incredible source book. It doesn't really get cold enough here as a rule for me to need to wear gloves all the time, or mittens per se. So I haven't bought the book for that reason. I've just bought it because it just looks amazing. And as I say, it was more of a companion one. So it's the same author, Anne Bordsgaard. And it just, yeah, I'm feeling my inner Norwegian come to the fore with this. And I think, well, I mean, if you look at the cover again, isn't it just so amazing? You see all these patterns. In black and white, it's similar. You could see 20 or 30 pairs of mittens and think, oh, it's the same mitten. It's not till you actually get them up and close and see, oh, that's different. Like I was just so amazed that there are so many stars, and all based on a similar number of stitches, but they'll do different things to them, make them different where each point might be in a different location, or there's like diagonal lines going through at different points. It's very, very clever. And I think most of my knitting has always been perhaps quite plain knitting. So I'm really enjoying getting to colour work again now and having fun thinking with my stitches. So a gorgeous, gorgeous book. Of course, you don't get this in bookshops in New Zealand really, so I ordered this online from Book Depository. So that was everything I've acquired since the last episode, which, as I say, is really quite good for me. Right, out and about. Or if I was Canadian, I might say oot and about. I was channeling my inner Viking a little while ago. Norsewood is a little town about just over an hour's drive north from here I am. And each year they have their Viking festival. Been there, got the t-shirt, and so it's fun. Did I feel more Norwegian by going there? Well, it's a Viking festival, and one assumes that covers different parts of Scandinavia. But Norsewood is a town that was settled by Norwegian people here in New Zealand. And the street names have the names of the Norse gods. It's really cute. It's a tiny town. Sadly, a bypass was put in, which means you've actually got to turn off the motorway to get to the town now. And I think that's reduced a lot of the business that people used to have in the town. But it's a cute place to go to. And because the Norwegian tradition is still quite strong there, they have this festival each year. And so I thought I'd go along. And it was a lot of fun, because they have people dressed in period costume, and there was reenactments of different things. They even had a wedding there this year. I missed the wedding, but two people were dressed up in Nordic clothing from times gone by, and had an official ceremony there, which was kind of cute. But they had archery, they had axe throwing, they had battle reenactments, they had tug of war. It was and horse events, equestrian events. So it was just so much fun. And it was a scorching hot day after multiple days of bad rain, so I'm pleased they actually got good weather for it. Yeah, just have a look at these photographs and video footage that I took. No, it won't be too heavy. What I found interesting also was that about a week or so after I went to the festival, I was watching television and there was a show which was the Irish actress Siobhan McSweeney, probably most famous for being the school teacher or headmistress in Dairy Girls. She's done a series where she's a tourist going through parts of Northern Ireland. And one of these episodes that I saw had her going to a Viking festival. And it was, honestly, you would have thought it was exactly the same as the one I went to here in New Zealand, except for one thing. One of the events they also had there was spinning and weaving and knitting. So I thought this was quite interesting seeing that episode because, yeah, it had people, and also they were wearing clothes that were more, it wasn't fine, delicate knitting. It was like chunky knits that were done from hand-woven yarns that wouldn't have been quite as refined. So it was actually quite sweet though. So they had people doing drop spindles to show how you can turn the fleece into a type of yarn that way. And so it was quite nice. So it was proving that, you know, these crafts that we do today have been around for, well, I almost want to say millennia, not just centuries, but millennia. So people have often, you know, worked with creating fabric and used fibres to create those fabrics. So it's kind of sweet. Who knows, perhaps I should get involved for next year's event and also bring some type of fibre and knitting to the Norsewood Festival. One of the other great things that they're doing there is they're trying to raise money to build a Viking longhouse. So I don't believe there's one in the Southern Hemisphere yet. So they're planning to do it. And well, if there is one already, they're planning to make this the biggest Viking longhouse in the Southern Hemisphere. So watch this space. If that gets underway, I'll let you know. And the other thing I'm putting in out and about this episode is in Masterton, which is the largest town close to where I live. They've got a wonderful museum art gallery there called Aratoi. And Aratoi recently had an exhibition called Ngahere. And it was the Weavers Guild of New Zealand or something. The Professional Weavers Network of New Zealand is what they were called. They had a themed exhibition. So they went out to their membership and sort of said, we have a theme, create items for this exhibition. And the theme Ngahere is about the bush of Aotearoa. For those that don't know, Aotearoa is a Maori name for New Zealand. And so I don't know how you feel about when you do something creative, but quite often, if you don't have a brief, your mind can take ages to settle on what to actually do. I find that even when I was at school and you had an essay topic, if you had a topic, I was off and running. And again, if I'm thinking I want to knit something or design something, I'll have 1,001 ideas in my head and I can't decide on anything. But if I give myself a brief or a story, all of a sudden I'm on the path and I'm doing something. Just like with my Nordic star scarf, I said, right, I want to do something with the stars. Bang, chose 4 stars, I'm doing a scarf, it's double knitting, done. So, given a theme, the members of Professional Weavers Network of New Zealand came up with items that were woven with the theme of the bush of New Zealand. And so it's wonderful seeing how different creatives interpret the same kind of brief. So I spent about 2 hours just wandering around the exhibition. And the great thing is that it's a touring exhibition as well. I'm not quite sure about the schedule anymore because I think it's been disrupted with the bad weather events that we've had around the country in the North Island. So that schedule may not be valid anymore. But here we go. Here's some photographs I took while I was at Aratoi, as well as some video footage as well. So enjoy this. Wasn't that amazing? I think the great thing also that impressed me was that all the items in the exhibition were for sale, and I think about half had red dots. So I was also impressed by some of the pricing on it. I wasn't about to buy anything for what I have here. I couldn't afford some of the price tags that were on there, but it was beautiful to see that people's work was being appreciated and worthy of the value. Of course it is. Now, I also, when I was there, because I couldn't afford to buy any exhibits, I did buy the magazine book that came out with it. So they produced this book called Ngahere, which features all the items that were in the exhibition as well. So it meant that I could take a little piece of the exhibition away. And I've just noticed that it did put the dates in here for the rest of the exhibition schedule. So I'll just quickly read out that from the 13th of May to the 18th of June, it's going to be at the Wallace Gallery, which is in Thames Street, Morrinsville. And from the 30th of June to the 20th of July, it'll be at the Creative Arts, which is in Byron Street, Napier South. Now, Napier's been quite badly affected by Cyclone Gabrielle, so I'm hoping that Creative Arts will still be there to host this at the time. From the 18th of August through until the 1st of October, it's going to be at the Pātaka Art and Museum Gallery, which is in Paramoana Street in Porirua. So that's a fantastic venue too. They've got lots of textile exhibitions they've held there in the past. That's a really beautiful museum and gallery there in Porirua, which is just north of Wellington on the other coast. So I tend to try and buy these sorts of magazines and booklets when I can, when I go to an exhibition. It's another way of actually funding the exhibitions as well to a certain extent. As I said, I like taking away a piece of the exhibition with me, so I've got the memories of it as well. But it's also quite nice oh, that's Miss Jaffa the cat announcing her presence. Yes. Oh, she must think it's dinner time. Yes, Miss Jaffa was seeking some attention. You'd think she was a deprived child, but no. I love being a cat dad, and she gets all the attention, but she always wants more. Speaking of the ginger goddess, I'll just sneak in a few photographs of what she's been up to lately herself. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me today. I've really enjoyed catching up with you all and doing another episode. Next time, I'll give you an update on my yarn or knitting bucket list. I'll tell you about my trip to Europe as well that's coming up, because that's going to knock off quite a few things from that bucket list as well, which is going to be quite exciting. In the meantime, enjoy your crafting, whether it be knitting, weaving, crochet, dare I say the word crochet, or anything that brings you joy. Until next time, haere rā.